With this policy, there will be no permission to do any kind of work that might affect Pakistan's financial, social, strategic, national, or security interests. We are making everything transparent and online.
60 days to shut up shop. That's the order given to more than 20 foreign-funded charities in Pakistan, including one founded by billionaire philanthropist George Soros. Their applications to re-register were rejected under new, stricter regulations. Since the killing of Osama bin Laden in 2011, Pakistan has become more hostile towards foreign aid groups. Back then, the country's intelligence services accused Save the Children of working with the CIA to find the former al-Qaeda leader, something the charity categorically denies. But Islamabad is still wary. So, do they have legitimate concerns, or is this a clampdown that will just hurt those most in need? Well, to discuss this, we're joined from Islamabad by Tarek Masoud. He's a former Pakistani military general. Also, we have Nargis Khan. She's the acting director and policy communications advisor at the Pakistan Humanitarian Forum, which represents many of the charities. And to complete our panel, we have security and political analyst Tariq Parvez. I thank you all for joining us. Tarek Masoud, let me begin with you, sir. Do you think this is a good decision by the state?
Well, it all depends. The people, the sort of organizations that they have disqualified and have not allowed them to operate anymore, if they were genuinely involved and engaged in activity which was subversive and acting against the interests of Pakistan, then they are justified. But one had to be more open about that, and I think the people of Pakistan should have known more about that. But I would say that I'm sure that they would have gone through the records very thoroughly because it would be a sad reflection if there had been any omission on their part as regards the integrity of these people. So whereas some of the NGOs are doing very good work in Pakistan, the fact is that some have been penetrated by the CIA and other intelligence agencies, including the Indians. So Pakistan is very wary of it, and especially, as you mentioned in your opening remarks, that because of our experience of Osama bin Laden, the fact remains that some of the NGOs do have in the past conducted themselves in such a way that they have made the Pakistani government and the intelligence agencies far more suspicious and have to be far more careful than what they have been in the past. And then the present regional scenario is such where there is so much of hostility from India and also in a way from Afghanistan, and the Americans are also not very happy with Pakistan and keep on threatening. So it is very logical that Pakistan takes certain steps so as to protect the integrity of Pakistan and also to ensure that they do not engage in these subversive activities. Okay,
so Nargis Khan, according to Tarek Masoud, who sounds quite hopeful that there is evidence if this is going down that route, he feels that at least some of these aid agencies have been penetrated by the CIA and India. Do you feel, Nargis, that the government has reasonable cause for suspicion and that's why they're being overcautious here?
First of all, let me start by saying that the Pakistan Humanitarian Forum and our members have been strongly supportive and committed with the government to ensure that there is regulation of the NGO sector. We've been working with the government since 2013 on this. So, I mean, right now, I can only really comment on what I know. You know, 11 of our member organisations have received a letter not approving their registration, and not a single one of them has actually been given a reason as to why this has happened. And, you know, for us, right now, what we're calling for is, you know, transparency, you know, a justifiable and, you know, transparent appeal process, which is also dignified. You know, many of these organisations are right now on the ground. They are working with some of the poorest communities. And many of these organisations in 2018, the 11 organisations alone have got $125 million committed to Pakistan. And this would be reaching 8.7 million people with safe drinking water, with basic services in health, you know, with education. And for us, it's about being realistic. Right now, the government are saying, we're going to give you no reason, but you've got 60 days to close your organisations. I mean, I don't understand where the transparency is here.
Okay, let me ask Tariq Parvez, does it bother you that the government has failed to produce any tangible evidence of spying? If somebody's spying, why don't you identify it and try them?
Very simple. You know, when you have spying agencies engaged in the business of working against the interest of state, you do catch them, you do put your hand, lay your hand on them, but you don't disclose your sources. Because in the world of intelligence, if you start disclosing your sources and laying the evidence to the public, you are really compromising your sources and your credibility in the business of intelligence. So the governments have to be very careful. If you speak to Washington, they'll tell you the same thing. If you talk to Moscow, they'll tell you the same thing. If you talk to ISI in Islamabad, they'll give you the same reason.
Okay, so Mr. Pirzada, what you're suggesting...
They'll give you the same reason.
Okay, fair enough. So what you're suggesting is Doctors Without Borders, MSF, Open Society Foundations, ActionAid must be guilty because the government has given them 60 days to leave. These guys who do big, important work all over the world, they have to have done something wrong because disclosing the sources would compromise Pakistan's security. That's the meaning of what you said, isn't it?
Absolutely. What I'm saying is that you have to be very careful in today's world, especially, remember, Pakistan is not going through normal circumstances. We are a victim of US foreign policy for the last 40 years. We are a victim of Indian foreign policy, which is a policy of sheer hostility for the last, since the birth of Pakistan. Then we have a new Afghanistan run by Ashraf Ghani and guided by and instructed by Washington, who are playing a very dirty game. So there is terrorism in Pakistan. You saw what happened in Quetta yesterday. So let me answer your question in a very specific way. Pakistan must make as much room as possible to the NGOs that are doing good work. And this is one reason 70 NGOs have been granted permission to work after the new regulations. 70. 23, I think 21 or 23, they have been banned. And then there are 20-some which are under reconsideration. So there is no hostility that I detect in the policy of Pakistan towards any NGO per se.
Tarek Masoud, why don't they bring forward any evidence? Because again, from what I'm hearing from Tariq Parvez and a little bit from you, although I don't think you fully agree with him, is that you have deep faith in the fact that the state must be doing something right in the absence of producing any evidence. Tell me why you have that deep faith.
Well, I would say that the state should come out with certain evidence because although I know that argument that the intelligence agencies don't want to disclose, but there is no such thing as not telling the NGOs that it is because of this reason that we cannot possibly allow you to continue, because we have come to know, I mean, the fact remains that just like you said that, you know, the ones like working for Without Borders, these doctors have been and nurses have been extremely helpful in certain circumstances in Pakistan, in very adverse circumstances. And I am rather surprised that they also have been banned. So there are certain organizations which also carry an international reputation. And it is in the interest of Pakistan, it is in the interest of Pakistan's prestige as well as credibility that a certain level of information must be given as to why these very prestigious organizations are not being allowed to function. But certainly those organizations which have been engaged in subversive activities and there is evidence, they may not disclose the evidence, they may not disclose the sources, but they can definitely say that they have been working against the interests of the state.
Okay, Tariq, you want to come in? Come in.
Yeah, look, what I am saying is that was just one aspect of concern for the Pakistani government. But then there are other areas. For example, there are organizations and have been organizations. For example, take the case of Red Cross. You know, just a few years ago, you can talk to their staff and you can take them into confidence. They'll tell you that it's not the organization itself, but the foreign agencies who were able to hire a couple of people in those organizations And that actually brought down a spectrum of restrictions against that very
can I just come in
NGO.
here?
Okay. So
can I
Yeah,
sorry to
Nargis
it's not
wants to
just
interrupt.
Can I come in here?
Nargis, come in.
Yeah, I just want to come in that, I mean, I'm not in the business of talking about conspiracy theories. I want to go back to the reality of the situation right now. There's 11 organisations that haven't been given any reasons as to why they've received a letter that then tells them, oh, look, we're not going to give you a reason, but you've not been approved, but we're going to give you 60 days to make an appeal, a representation. I mean, this is an appeal process. They've then been given 90 days while this appeal will be heard. And now we're talking about foreign agents. We employ over 6,000 national staff. In our organisations, we've got 63 members. At the last count, we had about 15 foreign expatriates. So, you know, these are Pakistani nationals working in these organisations. And these are 8.7 million people that in 2018 won't get the services that they should have been receiving.
Okay,
what
so
I want to know is, what is a dignified plan to hand over to the government?
Okay, good
You know,
point.
it's about having a dialogue.
Okay, good point. So, Tariq, here's the thing. Even with limited legal recourse, the burden of proof is on you. You have to prove a negative. How do you prove that you're not CIA or not Mossad or not ROC? I mean, this is impossible, isn't it?
Very, very simple. Very simple. All you have to do is state your goals, show what you have been able to accomplish in the past, and give the data, share the profile of your staff with the government of Pakistan and the necessary concerns, departments of the government of Pakistan. And I think this is why I said,
can I just come in here once again? I'd like to come in here.
Hold on.
Every single one of these organisations have shared the details. They've been sharing information for 2 years.
Please. Yeah, you have to. This is the way it works. If you don't share information,
but for 2 years they've been sharing information. Every single one of these organisations have been going through this process.
You are putting a cloud.
Every time that the Minister of Interior asked for a document, it was shared for every single one of these organisations.
Okay.
But right now the question is, we want some transparency. It's about the justness. It's about making sure that we've got a dignified handover.
I got your point. Let me finish what I was about to say very quickly. You see, as I started out by saying, there are 70 NGOs that have been granted permission to operate. 23 or 21 of them have been denied. And they have not been denied permanently. They can always file a letter, a petition for reconsideration, or they can come up with removal of those, certain concerns which the concerned Interior Department always shares with you.
But that's what we're looking for. We're looking for transparency in the process. All they've been told is 60 days for an appeal. 60 days you must put in your appeal or stop working in the country. And after that, in 90 days, we'll tell you what the response is. I mean, again, I go back to the reality on the ground. We'd like to see some transparency. And we'd like to see that openness and dialogue. We've been fully committed and supporting the government of Pakistan to regulate the sector. We want that. We've been working with the government since 2013 on this.
Tariq, she makes a good point, doesn't she?
Right now, it goes back.
Yeah. Let me answer that. Pakistan gets a lot of benefit, and I have no denying the fact, there is no denying the fact, Pakistani people get a lot of help from the work that is done by NGOs. I have been in Washington for a very long time.
Pakistani people work in these organisations as well.
Just one second.
It's okay for me to sit in a nice place in Islamabad and forget the fact that these are people that are building their homes.
May I tell you?
Okay, hold on just for a second. I just want to gain a bit of control over here. Nargis made a good point, Tariq, and Talat, I'm going to bring you in a second. Nargis made a great point, Tariq. Pakistani people work in these organisations. A small fraction of them are people who come in from outside. So these people are Pakistani citizens who are losing their jobs as well. Address that before I go to Talat. Tariq?
Very simple. Very good point. Actually, the easiest thing to use an organization is to contact the person or the citizens of that very country and use them. This is the easiest thing. That is, this is the way it is done all over the world.
Oh, look, we're going back to the world of conspiracy theories. We really are. We've got to go back to the fact that the reality on the ground is that
hold on.
34 million people were reached in 2016 by these NGOs.
Okay, fair enough. I gave you the example of Red Cross.
I'm sorry, this is far too much conspiracy.
Nargis and Tariq.
I gave you the example of Red Cross.
Okay, Tariq believes Red Cross has been infiltrated. I look forward to whatever comes out of that, because for the moment this is anecdotal. For the moment this is anecdotal. I haven't seen any evidence, but that's another discussion. Let me bring in Talat Masoud. Talat, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, please, sure. I think the government has been sort of unwise in taking such a harsh and a sort of a decision which has also not helped the Pakistani people who deserve and who have been helped enormously by these organizations. If they had definite proof against some of these organizations, they should have confronted them. It is quite possible that some of these organizations may have been infiltrated. Even the management of that organization may not have known it, and they would have corrected the situation. And I think it's extremely important for Pakistan, even for its own future, in terms of how it deals with the NGOs. Because the NGOs are, I mean, when they are doing such good work, and then you find that they have also been, according to Pakistani perspective, infiltrated by some intelligence agencies which are hostile towards Pakistan, then they should know exactly, those organizations should also know that this is the reason. You can't just say that, well, I mean, this organization, we will not give any permission to continue, whereas the others would be given permission. I think on one point, I would also like to add that this would have a very bad effect for future as well. And all other organizations which are working within Pakistan will also all the time be on the alert that you never know what sort of a future you have in Pakistan if that be the case.
Okay, I know you're all chomping at the bit. I have bad news for all of you. I have to move on. I don't want to move on, but for the sake of time, I must end this discussion right now. Talat Masoud, Nargis Khan and Tariq Pirzada, I do appreciate you all coming onto the show and sharing your thoughts with us. Thanks for joining us on the Newsmakers.